Hi everyone. So yesterday I spent 4 long and painful hours reading through Blake Lively's opposition for both the summary judgment and the judgment on pleadings. I'm not going to read her Rule 56.1 declaration opposition because I'm probably sure that it's around 95% redacted anyway, and what we do read will just either be bullshit or make no sense. So we have Jonesworks, Stephanie Jones. She has filed her opposition to Jen Abel's motion for conditional summary judgment. I've been told it's one of the wildest out of all of the filings, so let's get straight into it. After I've done this, what I will do next is I will go through all of the exhibits that are unsealed and I do a reading of them. So, and then I've still got to do the kind of the smaller letter filings, probably another multitude of filings video. But we'll start here. Okay. Third party defendant Jonesworks respectfully submits this memorandum of law in opposition to defendant and third party plaintiff Jennifer Abel's motion for conditional summary judgment. Introduction. Jennifer Abel is speaking out of both sides of her mouth. I like it when they start like this. I know it's going to be interesting. Also, the irony is not lost on me that Stephanie Jones probably speaks out of her psychic's crystal ball. She denies engaging in any of the conduct that Lively alleges gives rise to Abel's liability for the retaliatory smear campaign described in Lively's complaint, but simultaneously argues that the actions she admits to entitle her to indemnification. But record evidence demonstrates that Abel's actions in July and August 2024 were self-serving and far outside the bounds of her employment at Jonesworks. Indeed, Abel's own expert in this matter acknowledges that redacted. Yet, remarkably, Abel now claims redacted that she is entitled to summary judgment because she was engaged in ordinary public relations at the instruction of her employer. Not so. Okay. Not only did Abel know the digital campaign was far outside the bounds of Jonesworks' ethos of positive publicity, she also knew that Jonesworks expressly objected to the crisis PR tactics employed by Melissa Nathan and her agency. Her motion thus fails. One thing I will say on that, because that sounds like a pretty fair argument actually from Stephanie Jones. If there's evidence there that she's saying, Melissa Nathan, I don't like her tactics, etc., etc., and I know that exists because I've seen it. Then she, if she's right, she is warning Wayfarer at least, because I think I've seen the messages between Stephanie Jones and either Justin or Jamie, and she does say she doesn't like the tactics that Melissa Nathan uses. However, the counter argument for that is, well, Stephanie Jones, you just don't like Melissa Nathan because you personally don't like her, and kind of trace it all back to that failed attempt to recruit Melissa Nathan. Because don't forget, Stephanie Jones, right? Given that she's sitting there arguing that she doesn't like the tactics that Melissa Nathan employs in PR, she also attempted to hire her. So she couldn't have been that, aggrieved by these tactics. So, example of Stephanie Jones speaking out both sides of her mouth. If that alone were not fatal to Abel's motion, at the same time, Abel was engaging in the conduct Lively urges. She was also working against Jonesworks' interest and for her own. She was conspiring with Nathan to facilitate a Business Insider kill story against Jonesworks and its founder and CEO, Stephanie Jones. She was working behind her employer's back and over Jonesworks' objection to recommend that Wayfarer Studios and Justin Baldoni retain Nathan for the exact crisis PR that resulted in Lively's claims against Abel. And she was plotting her departure from Jonesworks, surreptitiously creating her own competing public relations company and pilfering Jonesworks clients, employees, and confidential documents for her competitive gain. An employee in name only, Abel was a double agent defying Jonesworks instructions, redacted, and deliberately cutting Jonesworks CEO out of the crisis strategy so she could steal them as clients and conceal her participation in the nefarious campaign she knew Jonesworks would never condone. Shielded from the view, supervision, and control of her employer, Abel embarked on the digital campaign over which Lively has now sued her and her co-conspirators. Common law indemnification requires that an employee bear no responsibility for the actions engaged in. The employee must have acted strictly within the scope of her employment. The opposite is true here. Abel charted her own malicious and treacherous course for personal gain against the clear instruction and expectations of her workplace. She actively concealed her acts from Jonesworks, and she cannot now seek refuge behind that employer for her betrayal. At a minimum, the overwhelming evidence of Abel's deceit, concealment, and self-interest present issues of disputed material fact that preclude summary judgment. Her motion should be denied. Okay, so background. Jonesworks is an award-winning PR agency that provides positive, bespoke PR services to its clients. In 2017, Jonesworks began representing Baldoni for his personal publicity. That work included promoting Baldoni and his projects through positive publicity, including by creating communications materials such as biographies and press releases, supporting Baldoni's promotional activities and philanthropy, and securing press coverage to promote his work as an actor and director. Jonesworks for Baldoni did not include seeding, planting, or promoting negative stories for Baldoni or manipulating social media. I'm sure I've seen messages where Stephanie Jones is in the thread, at least, where she is talking about how to, promote negative stories. After Wayfarer was formed, Jonesworks also began providing PR services to the studio. On May 6, 2020, Jonesworks and Wayfarer entered into an agreement establishing Jonesworks as its exclusive public relations counsel. At Wayfarer's request, Jonesworks bundled Baldoni's personal publicity services into its agreement with Wayfarer, such that the terms of the May 2020 agreement applied to both Baldoni's and Wayfarer's accounts. Like Jonesworks' previous work for Baldoni, the work Jonesworks did under that agreement included promoting their projects through positive publicity, pitching stories to promote Baldoni and Wayfarer, as well as their projects to earned media, and providing talking points for use with the press. Jonesworks also monitored and collated press coverage of Baldoni and Wayfarer to share it with them. The work Jonesworks did for Baldoni and Wayfarer under their agreement at no time included seeding, planting, or promoting negative stories about anyone, including individuals in disputes with Baldoni or Wayfarer. Nor did Jonesworks influence social media conversations about Baldoni or Wayfarer through false or paid-for accounts or comments, or engage otherwise in social media manipulation. Around May 2025, I think I'm not sure 2025 is the right year here. Jonesworks began providing additional social media services to Wayfarer and Baldoni on a 3-month trial basis. Under that trial, Jonesworks helped Baldoni brainstorm ideas for social posts, post approved content for him, and record video in connection with those social media posts. Jonesworks did not take any steps to manipulate social media conversations or coverage, and as such, conduct was not within the scope of the trial. Wayfarer ended the trial on July 31st, 2024. Alright, okay. So yeah, the date was wrong. I'm not sure entirely if 2024 is the right date. It might be, but certainly in 2025, Jonesworks was not representing Baldoni or Wayfarer. Jonesworks hires Jen Abel and instructs her to conduct her duties lawfully, ethically, and consistent with Jonesworks' positive ethos. Again, just a reminder, I did a whole video on the Glassdoor reviews. Glassdoor is like it's like a Trustpilot review platform, but it's for like employees to review what it's like to work with companies. And there are a lot of reviews on Jonesworks, and nearly all of them are shit. To summarize it, even where they're positive, it is not about Stephanie Jones or any of the leadership team. It is about their fellow employees and some of the clients. But, you know, phrases such as toxic culture and trauma bonded were thrown around in several reviews. And there was not a single one that had a positive word about Stephanie Jones. Not one. So, and definitely I did not see, in fact, there was a distinct lack of the use of the word positive ethos. So, just keep that in mind. But obviously, if you haven't checked out the video, check out the video. It's hilarious. I don't think I've laughed so much through a video in my life. Okay. Jonesworks hired Abel in July 2020 to work as a publicist and help grow its Los Angeles office. Abel's agreement with Jonesworks required her to acknowledge that all work product created in connection with her employment was exclusive property of Jonesworks and prohibited her from disparaging Jonesworks from preparing or publishing any articles or materials involving Jonesworks without prior written authorization. Abel was subsequently promoted and executed a new agreement in 2021 which reaffirmed her obligations to protect Jonesworks' proprietary information and impose certain non-solicitation obligations. When Abel joined Jonesworks, she was instructed to carry out the duties of a competent PR professional, which includes supporting the positioning of her clients in an ethical, lawful, and responsible manner through positive publicity. For example, Abel was expected to guide her clients as they interacted with the press, but Abel was not expected to, was never instructed to, and was prohibited from manipulating social media conversations to attack anyone, including a non-client, and from pitching, seeding, or promoting negative false stories about anyone, including a non-client who had complained of misconduct against her client. As a PR professional with over a decade of experience, Abel understood when she joined Jonesworks that she was employed to engage in proactive, positive press to help build her client's brand and promote their projects and partnership, and that her duties did not include promoting negative coverage. Okay. Accordingly, when Abel became the point person on Baldoni and Wayfarer's account, after joining Jonesworks, she understood Jonesworks' work for Baldoni and Wayfarer did not include seeding, planting, or promoting negative stories about individuals in disputes with Baldoni or Wayfarer or manipulating social media, and that she was prohibited from engaging or participating in such nefarious conduct. I mean, she just seems to be repeating herself now. Jonesworks as a company does not engage in these activities. Publicly available information says that's not true. And as a seasoned PR executive who worked at Jonesworks for more than 4 years, Abel knew that such activities are prohibited based on Jonesworks ethics, course of conduct, and expectations, as well as the industry standard expectations that garnering positive publicity to promote clients' projects and partnerships does not include promoting negative content. Abel advised Wayfarer to hire Nathan over Jones's objection, while she and Nathan colluded to steal Jonesworks' clients. Just for clarity, Abel had her own business. Nathan had her own business. I don't think they colluded to steal Jonesworks' clients. On July 19th, 2024, while still employed by Jonesworks, Abel formed her soon-to-be competing business, RWA Communications. At that time, Abel had not told Jones of her intent to start a competing business. Also, in late July, reports began to surface regarding tension between Baldoni and cast members of the film It Ends With Us. Abel told Jones that Wayfarer wanted recommendations for crisis PR firms to hire in the event the situation escalated. Abel did not tell Jones that it was Abel herself who recommended Wayfarer bring on a crisis firm. Jones gave Wayfarer recommendations for crisis PR firms. Abel recommended Nathan and her company, the agency Group PR, despite knowing Jones would object to her doing so because Jones had previously witnessed Nathan engage in unethical tactics on behalf of a shared client. Abel knew Jones no longer wanted Jonesworks to work with Nathan, and that Jones believed Nathan's practices went against Jonesworks' ethos of positive publicity and were not in its client's best interests. On July 25th, 2024, Abel pitched Wayfarer to Nathan as something that they could work on together after Abel left Jonesworks. Redacted. There's a lot of redacted. On July 26, 2024, TAG sent its proposed scope of work to Abel's RWA email address, not her Jonesworks email address, at Abel's instruction. Abel did so because Jones still did not know that Abel was arranging for Wayfarer to hire TAG, and because she was planning to take Baldoni and Wayfarer to her new agency and continue working with Nathan. Abel told a TAG employee that she would later have Wayfarer's president, Tara Hanks, call Steph and let her know, then we can be above board. Even when Wayfarer did as Abel instructed, Jones asked if redacted, and then something else is redacted. Nevertheless, when Jones learned Wayfarer was considering hiring Nathan, she immediately cautioned Wayfarer that redacted. Jones warned Baldoni in particular that she was worried not only about Nathan but also the people Nathan works with. Jones further told Hanks and Heath that she believed Nathan was behind negative attack websites and social media profiles about Jones that had appeared online beginning in May 2024. Yet Wayfarer spoke to only Nathan. Wayfarer and Baldoni admit that they ultimately hired Nathan and Tag over Jones's objection and against her advice. Wayfarer and Abel also misled Jones about the scope of work Nathan and Tag would be providing. And then there's something redacted. But that was not true. Tag's scenario planning document created for Wayfarer included that Tag would manage media inquiries on background as sources familiar and respond to media, which Tag did. At the same time Abel was onboarding Nathan behind Jones's back, she was colluding with Nathan to take Jonesworks clients. On July 29, 2024, for example, Nathan gloated to Abel, "Once you are gone, we will be on accounts together and make really good money and be happy." In those same messages, Abel and Nathan discussed a forthcoming negative Business Insider article about Jones, with Abel asking Nathan if she had yet spoken with Katie, the journo writing the story, which Nathan later joked to Abel would be a kill story of Jones. On July 30th, 2024, Abel redacted. Okay. Abel conducts the digital campaign behind Jones's back while working against Jonesworks' interests. Wayfarer and Tag anticipated and understood that Tag would be working with Abel, and not Jonesworks, to plant and promote negative stories about Lively, and they intentionally excluded Jones from that effort. Indeed, before Jones was even told Wayfarer hired Tag, Abel admits that she sent Wayfarer executives a message, without Jones in copy, that she spoke to a journalist friend of 12 plus years, who was armed and ready to take the story of Blake weaponizing feminism to any of her outlets, and that she would connect her friend to Melissa Nathan tomorrow. Moreover, the August 2nd scenario planning document Tag created for Wayfarer noted that Tag would work alongside Jen Abel and her team to plant a seed earlier on to position Baldoni's truth/narrative, hinting that Baldoni and Blake didn't always agree at times, and plant stories about the weaponization of feminism and how people in Blake's circle, like Taylor Swift, have been accused of utilizing these tactics to bully into getting what they want. Jones, on the other hand, had never reviewed or discussed the scenario planning document until this litigation. Jones redacted. Abel promptly shared that feedback with Nathan, but not Jones, telling Nathan that Baldoni wanted to feel like Lively could be buried. On August 5th, 2024, Baldoni sent Abel social media content about Hailey Bieber's history of bullying many women, not just Selena Gomez, throughout the years, and told Abel, "This is what we would need." Abel responded that she literally just spoke to Melissa Nathan about this, about what we discussed last night for social and digital. That same day, redacted. Wayfarer has admitted that Nathan recommended it hire Wallace and that Abel agreed with that recommendation. Jones, nor anyone else from Jonesworks, did not know of or participate in Wayfarer's decision to hire Wallace. On August 7th, 2024, Abel expressed her frustration that Wayfarer had not taken digital action, telling Nathan, but not Jones or anyone else from Jonesworks, redacted. Nathan responded, redacted. Also on August 7th, Tag sent Heath and Abel, but not Jones or anyone else from Jonesworks, the specifics on the social and digital mitigation and remediation plan they would pursue with Wallace. That plan anticipated working in conjunction with Jen Abel and her team, as well as Tag PR, not Jonesworks, to directly influence forums that are working against Justin Baldoni and Wayfarer to adjust the narrative in real time, executing all without fingerprints. Tag shortly thereafter introduced Wallace to Abel, not Jones or anyone else from Jonesworks. Redacted. After Wallace came on board, Abel worked with him and Tag to boost and amplify media critical of libel and suppress negative coverage of Baldoni, including to cover up allegations of his misconduct. For example, on August 8, 2024, Abel flagged social media posts about Baldoni. Redacted. On August 9th, Nathan told Abel alone that Wallace said, "We are crushing it on Reddit, and gloated, "We've confused people. So much mixed messaging. It's actually really funny if you think about it." On August 10th, 2024, Tag reported to Abel that we've also started to see a shift on social, due largely to Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. On August 13th, Baldoni shared with Abel TikTok videos, including a video negative to Lively, to which Abel responded, "Yes, we have this, and this is what the digital team is amplifying." And then there's some redacted stuff. Jonesworks was deliberately excluded from the crisis effort that Nathan and Abel were orchestrating. Heath confirmed in sworn testimony on Wayfarer's behalf that Jones had never been involved in the crisis response. And I said that this would be used. When I read that part of the deposition, I said, she's going to use that to say, look, see, even Wayfarer say, I'm not part of this. It's what I would do. If I was representing someone, that's exactly what I would do. The nuances around it do not matter. This is, a strategic maneuver to do that. There is sworn deposition of specifically your former client saying that you are not involved, you are not part of the team. Then if I was her counsel, I'd be like, yeah, no, see, and I would be just slapping everyone in the face with that. Because it's for them to explain what they meant. It's not for me to, as if I was counsel, it would not be my job to be sitting there trying to explain what Wayfarer, what Jamie Heath meant by that. I would just be taking the words like, well, no, they're his words. It would be then down to Wayfarer to to explain that. What did you mean by that? I knew she was going to do that. And it's irritating that, Wayfarer, anyone from Wayfarer said that. Tag employees and Wallace similarly confirmed they never spoke with Jones about their work for Wayfarer. Indeed, after Wayfarer was told falsely that Jones had spoken to the press about Baldoni on or about August 8th, 2024, redacted. Abel, redacted. A few days later, when Jones reaffirmed her support for Baldoni and Wayfarer and suggested Wayfarer flood the zones with positives, Abel, redacted. At the same time, Abel and Nathan were working against Jonesworks' interests. On August 9th, 2024, Nathan encouraged Abel to take this fucking client, and meaning Wayfarer, and never talk to Jones against I swear to God. Oh, right, it's supposed to be again. I swear to God. That same day, Abel suggested redacted. Abel specifically redacted. Abel and Nathan concurrently were attempting to arrange for Jonesworks employee Matthew Mitchell, the only other Jonesworks employee Abel claims to have worked with on the digital campaign, to leave Jonesworks to work with Tag so he could continue working on the Wayfarer campaign. On August 13th, 2024, for example, Abel redacted. On August 19th, 2024, Nathan told Abel that she encouraged Baldoni to leave Jonesworks and go with Abel to RWA, to which Abel responded, "Ha ha ha, oh my God, love you." That same day, Abel told a friend that she was taking all of her clients and joked that redacted. Abel continues the digital campaign after her termination from Jonesworks. Jonesworks terminated Abel on August 21st, 2024, after it discovered her stealing proprietary and confidential information to support her new competing business. Wayfarer purported to terminate its agreement with Jonesworks on redacted. Wayfarer continued its work with Abel and Tag through and immediately following Abel's termination without pause, and then after its purported termination of its contract with Jonesworks. Indeed, on August 22nd, the day after Abel's termination, redacted. Abel's efforts to manipulate social media in Baldoni and Wayfarer's favour have continued through this litigation. For example, on January 3rd, 2025, redacted. Lively sues Abel for her involvement in the digital campaign. On December 31st, 2024, Lively commenced this action. On July 30th, 2025, Lively filed the operative complaint. July 30th, 2025, Lively filed the operative complaint that asserts claims against Abel for A. aiding and abetting harassment and retaliation in violation of California's Fair Employment and Housing Act, B. false light invasion of privacy, and C. civil conspiracy. I think that's another wrong date. Lively alleges that Abel participated in an ongoing AstroTurf retaliation scheme against Lively by, among other things, participating in the planting of negative false stories about Lively to cover up Baldoni's bad acts and amplifying or boosting negative content critical of Lively to cover up Baldoni's bad acts and retaliate against Lively. One thing I will say, right, is this line here, amplifying or boosting negative content. Now, no one seems to suggest that Wayfarer, Jen Abel, Melissa Nathan, Jed Wallace created new negative content. They keep saying, well, you are boosting and amplifying negative content that was already there effectively. And the thing is, right, is like that is exactly what's happened. It's been old interviews and, old stories have resurfaced. And the thing is, if it's already publicly available information, let's just say, even if they were boosting them and amplifying them, I still don't see how that is actionable. Because if you have done an interview in the past, before all of this, where you look like a massive asshole, and it just went over people's heads at the time, the fact that it's been brought to the surface again in a time when people are kind of looking at you more critically, I still don't see, like, at least with the Rebel Wilson case, the allegations are that, Rebel Wilson is saying, well, Melissa Nathan, Brian Friedman, together, they planted fake stories that were essentially created by them about Amanda Ghost. But here, with Lively, that's not the same thing. What Lively's saying and what Jones is saying is you are boosting negative content. But it suggests that it's negative content that already existed. In the majority of the cases, was like Blake Lively, her own words, her own, herself in the content. It was just unflattering. But at the time, nobody noticed. Now, we're all going back and go, oh, hold on a minute. Ryan Reynolds once said that he couldn't take his eyes off a breastfeeding woman in a hotel lobby. And he also said that it was the one moment in time that if he could go back, he would go back to that moment. But yet, Lively is, bitching about Jamie Heath. We're all looking at it from that perspective, through those eyes. And yeah, like before, people kind of just brushed off of, probably joking, or, oh, that's just so typical of Blake Lively or Ryan Reynolds, whatever. Now we're like, oh, yeah, they're awful people. We did not know that. Oh, wow, there's like, oh, it's not just this one interview. There's actually thousands of interviews where they're like this. Well, that changes things. And that's how people are looking at this quote-unquote negative content. And that's what's happened. I know this because, like, I'm amongst many other people, we're the ones who are kind of finding this and bringing it to the public attention and going, oh my God, look. Oh, look at these Easter eggs. And we're not being paid or asked to do it, by the way. It is just, if it's out there, it's going to get found. That was a sidetrack, sorry. Just a thought I had, that's all. That, like, even if they're amplifying what is their classing as negative content, if it's Blake Lively doing an interview and it's from, like, 5-10 years ago, it's still Blake Lively doing the interview. If it's negative because of her. No one made her look negative in an interview ever. Okay, we continue. I got to say though as well, right? Just so far, Stephanie Jones is actually doing a decent job here. She has pointed to things where actually no one spoke to me. Oh, I wasn't copied into that. Oh, and I think in particular the fact that things were emailed to Jen Abel's new company's email address rather than Jonesworks. Like, that's quite a big point. So I can't. I'm told it gets wild if further on, but so far I can't actually fault what Stephanie Jones is saying here. So this is good so far in terms of an opposition. Abel's expert report acknowledges that redacted. Indeed, the report states that, well, it's redacted. On August 13th, 2025, Abel filed the operative amended answer to Lively's complaint and an amended third-party complaint seeking indemnification against Jonesworks, but redacted. Rather, redacted. So I'm not going to go over the legal standard. No need to. Argument. Okay. Genuine disputes of material fact exist as to each essential element of Abel's common law indemnification claim and preclude summary judgment. Whether Abel's conduct falls within the scope of her employment, the threshold requirement for common law indemnification, depends on what she actually did, and the parties fundamentally dispute this question. The parties also dispute whether Abel bears responsibility for the actions underlying Lively's claims, whether she acted in furtherance of her own competing self-interest, whether her conduct was foreseeable to Jonesworks, and whether Jonesworks knew of and authorized her specific actions. Each of these material disputes precludes summary judgment. Summary judgment is precluded by evidence establishing that Abel is responsible and at fault for the conduct that forms the basis of Lively's complaint. As a threshold matter, Abel's motion for summary judgment is fatally premature. That is, the court cannot assess whether specific acts by Abel were within the scope of her employment, because no determination has been made as to what those acts are, let alone her intent and responsibility for them. The court should deny summary judgment on this ground alone. I don't agree with that, right? Because this is why she's asked for conditional summary judgment. It would be like, Judge, can you grant this conditionally? And then it would all be decided, like, the trial in the Lively case would proceed, and the outcome of that would determine then, whether the like, just say for argument's sake, the judge grants this on a conditional basis. If she then loses in the Lively case and is found liable for this, and the evidence comes to light that she did all of this in furtherance of her own agenda, etc., and Jones really was not part of this or involved in this, then the pending kind of conditional granted status can then be revoked. And that's specifically the whole point of requesting a conditional summary judgment. So I don't agree with this, that it's premature. Okay. Such outstanding factual disputes and determinations regarding the underlying conduct bar the granting of summary judgment here. Lively and Abel present competing factual narratives and embedded with a multitude like Lively's rubbing off on her of factual disputes regarding Abel's conduct, which must be resolved by a jury. Determination by the fact finder of the precise activities that Abel undertook, as well as how and why, is a necessary precondition to the court determining whether Abel's actions were within the scope of her employment at Jonesworks. Lively alleges that Abel participated in a sophisticated press and digital campaign designed to retaliate against her, including by planting and seeding negative stories about Lively with journalists, coordinating with Tag and Wallace to manipulate social media platforms, including Reddit, Discord, TikTok, and Instagram, amplifying and boosting negative content about Lively, suppressing positive content about Lively, utilizing algorithm manipulation, and executing all of this without fingerprints. Lively alleges this campaign constituted intentional torts. Abel, for her part, denies engaging in any of the actions Lively alleges. She instead characterizes her conduct as routine public relations activities for Wayfarer and Baldoni as part of the services Jonesworks was providing them as its clients, even though her expert says, redacted, I'm dying to know what this expert says. This factual dispute cannot be resolved at summary judgment until a jury determines what Abel actually did. The question of whether her conduct fell within the scope of employment remains a genuine issue of material fact that must be resolved. Abel acknowledges this authority and concedes that her motion may be premature. She attempts to avoid the necessary consequence of this, that is, denial of her motion, by relying on cases in which courts granted summary judgment on indemnification claims. But those cases are inapposite and readily distinguishable. In each, there was no dispute about what the employee in question actually did or whether the employee acted within the scope of employment. Here, by contrast, there are fundamental disputes about what conduct Abel engaged in that must be resolved before any analysis of whether that conduct was within the scope of her employment can even be undertaken. The court should deny Abel's motion for this reason alone. Okay. Just to remind everyone, when it comes to the motions to dismiss, whilst Abel ended up having to amend her complaint against Stephanie Jones because, a fair amount of that was dismissed without prejudice, the indemnification complaint against Jones was not dismissed. That was denied. The motion to dismiss was denied. So, from the law perspective, there was enough to move forward. Record evidence establishes Abel was responsible for and at fault for the conduct that forms the basis for Lively's complaint. As this court explained in resolving Jonesworks' motion to dismiss, Abel bears the ultimate burden to show that she bears no fault or responsibility for the tort claims against her by Lively before she can establish her entitlement to common law indemnification. Abel can only recover if she was not negligent and acted merely at the direction of Jonesworks. Thus, Abel must establish that she was not at fault and bore no responsibility for the acts that led to Lively's claims or harm. If Abel participated to any degree in the wrongdoing, she cannot receive the benefit of common law indemnification. Here, Abel offers no argument or evidence in support of her lack of fault or responsibility, a required element of her claim. This alone is sufficient to defeat Abel's motion. But Abel does not make this showing. She cannot, as detailed throughout, far from acting merely in rote obedience of Jonesworks' orders, Abel embarked on her own course of conduct for her own purposes in service of her own interests, all the while hiding that conduct from Jonesworks. And in brackets here, this is what I mean. Abel instructing TAG to send proposed scope of work to her RWA, not Jonesworks' email address. Like things like that. They are actually very strong arguments, and where things, I think, are unraveling a little bit here. I'm not saying I believe Jonesworks, absolutely not, but the argument is strong. Okay. Abel's self-serving and conclusory claim that all of these actions were merely in obedience to Jonesworks' instructions and not her own independent conduct is implausible, inconsistent, and incredible. The facts speak for themselves on Abel's degree of responsibility and bar summary judgment. Okay. There are disputed facts on whether Abel's conduct was within the scope of her employment preclude summary judgment. Even if the court does consider the substance of Abel's motion, it should still deny it. Abel cannot establish as a matter of undisputed fact that her conduct was within the scope of her employment, an essential element to her common law indemnification claim. Indeed, there exists disputed facts on each prong of the scope of employment analysis, any one of which acts to independently preclude summary judgment. Under New York law, common law indemnification requires that Abel establish she conducted the actions alleged by Lively in the course of her employment at Jonesworks and at the direction of Jonesworks, and that this conduct was neither done with wholly personal motives nor unforeseeable to Jonesworks. There are genuine disputes of material fact as to whether Abel meets any of these requirements. whether she acted in furtherance of Jonesworks' business or her own interests, whether her conduct was foreseeable or constituted a significant departure from her normal duties, and whether she defied Jonesworks' instructions. Indeed, the record overwhelmingly supports the opposite conclusion than Abel seeks, but at the very least, each of these disputes independently precludes summary judgment. Overwhelming evidence establishes that Abel acted in pursuit of her own interests. Okay. Here there is substantial evidence that throughout July and August 2024, Abel was acting in her own personal interests and not in the interests of Jonesworks, and indeed was acting deliberately and directly adverse to Jonesworks' interests. For example, Abel recommended that Wayfarer hire Nathan, whose PR practices Abel knew went against Jonesworks' positive ethos. So Abel and Nathan could take that account from Jonesworks upon Abel's departure. At the same time, Abel participated in the digital campaign for which Lively sued. She helped facilitate a Business Insider kill story about Jonesworks' founder and CEO, including by speaking to the reporter responsible for the story multiple times throughout this period. Redacted. Abel also conspired with Nathan to ensure that Wayfarer and Baldoni breached their contract with Jonesworks and retained Abel's new competing PR firm in violation of both Wayfarer's and Abel's contracts with Jonesworks. And as her departure from Jonesworks neared, Abel was using Redacted to circumvent Jonesworks' computer security systems in order to steal confidential documents in violation of her agreement. All of this was in service of Abel's scheme with Nathan to take this fucking client and never talk to Jones again, I swear to God. In the face of these facts, Abel falls well short of meeting her burden to show that there is no material disputed fact and that she was working in Jonesworks' interest. Her motion must be denied. Ample evidence establishes that Abel's conduct was unforeseeable. Even if Abel acted in Jonesworks' interests, she did not. Jonesworks would still be liable only if Abel's tortious conduct was also generally foreseeable and a natural incident of the employment. Abel's expert report alone dooms her summary judgment motion on this point. That report recognizes that, redacted, Abel cannot win summary judgment in the face of this admission. Regardless, the record evidence also belies Abel's arguments. Abel relies on her unsubstantiated assertion that she engaged in only standard practice relations activities, such as responding to press inquiries, monitoring media coverage, and coordinating messaging, all of which she claims fell within the scope of Jonesworks' services for Wayfarer. But Abel's say-so does not make it true, especially in light of her own expert report, and is insufficient to carry her summary judgment burden, especially where, as detailed throughout, Abel's self-serving assertion flies in the face of the overwhelming evidence. What is more, even if Abel claimed engagement in standard public relations activities may have been foreseeable to Jonesworks, this does not end the inquiry because such standard activities do not comprise or reflect what Lively alleges and the evidence demonstrates Abel did here. Indeed, Abel herself admits to doing substantially more and different work that fell outside the scope of Jonesworks' contract with Wayfarer, including planting a negative story with a reporter to cover up Baldoni's misdeeds, identifying social media content that was hostile to Lively for amplification, redacted, working with Tag and Wallace to manipulate, suppress, or boost social media content against Lively, and boasting with Nathan about their ability to bury Lively. None of these actions were foreseeable to Jonesworks, which, as a matter of company practice and policy, does not engage in such underhanded, manipulative tactics, but instead insists that all of its employees engage only in ethical and routine positive public relations work. Again, publicly available information shows otherwise. It shows that's not quite true. Well, it's a long way from true, in my opinion. Because Abel's liability hinges on her violation of this Jonesworks culture and ethos, as well as her participation in unforeseeable and unlawful conduct, her indemnification claim fails and her motion should be denied. Okay. The evidence further establishes that Abel deliberately acted outside Jonesworks' goals. When an employee's conduct is not in furtherance of any employer-related goal whatsoever, she's not acting within the scope of employment. Here, ample record evidence demonstrates Abel acting inconsistently with employer-related goals on multiple fronts, including the following, each of which defeat her motion for summary judgment. First, Abel recommended that Wayfarer hire Nathan, despite knowing Jones and Jonesworks objected to that recommendation and to Nathan's hiring because Nathan's PR practices went against Jonesworks' ethos. Again, Jonesworks attempted to hire Melissa Nathan. Okay, I'm going to share this. This is back in April. Yeah, I put up this X post. The real reason for Stephanie Jones's resentment of Melissa Nathan. In my never-ending quest for answers to Subpoenagate, because at the time we didn't know about Van Zandt, I decided to go back over the original complaint from Stephanie Jones filed in December, which was in the Supreme Court of New York. I came across something I found interesting. And this is the original complaint, filed on the 21st of December. So here in yellow, I've really got to go back to X, I think, and start using my hearts again. Right, yellow. In 2022, Melissa Nathan was engaged in negotiations with Jonesworks to join the firm. According to Stephanie Jones, the negotiations were at a significant stage of progression where Jonesworks had actually agreed to hire Nathan and taken on 2 of her colleagues. For whatever reason, and Jones does not say what those reasons are, the negotiations broke down with Nathan and she ultimately did not join the firm. We know that she went on to form Tag PR somewhere around this time or soon after. So, in yellow here, in 2022, Nathan and Jonesworks engaged in negotiations regarding Nathan potentially joining Jonesworks. The negotiations progressed significantly, including Jonesworks agreeing to hire and actually hiring 2 of Nathan's colleagues upon Nathan's insistence. Ultimately, however, negotiations with Nathan failed and she was not retained by Jonesworks. And then in green, immediately following the paragraph where Jones clearly thought that Nathan was so good at her job that she agreed to hire her, Jones appears to have become vengeful at her job offer being rejected, because we know it was rejected by Nathan, not Jones. It wasn't withdrawn by Jones. She appears to have become vengeful at her job offer being rejected and is now disparaging Nathan's skills in PR and admits to interfering with a mutual client's unrelated contractual agreement with Nathan. So, to read this paragraph, in 2023, right, so this is the year before all of this kicked off with the Lively situation. In 2023, Jones witnessed Nathan's approach to handling clients' crisis when they work for a mutual client. Nathan's tactics went far over the line. Jones recommended that the client terminate its relationship with Nathan, which was separate and independent from Jones and Jonesworks. Jones herself further resolved that she would not collaborate with Nathan for clients in the future. Nathan has seemed to harbour significant animus towards Jones and Jonesworks ever since. So, like, she's tried to hire Melissa Nathan. Then suddenly, with a mutual client, Stephanie Jones has had an epiphany, or her psychic has told her, actually, no, I don't approve of her tactics. Just interferes in a relationship that Melissa Nathan has with a mutual Jonesworks client, and then, swears off ever working with Melissa Nathan again, but then kind of finishes up with, well, for some reason she doesn't like me. Melissa Nathan doesn't like me. And kind of suggests that Melissa Nathan is the one with the problem, not Stephanie Jones. But you see, to me, when I read this, and I still hold this true, Stephanie Jones is very vengeful. There is so much public information about that, from a vast array of, former employees and current employees and clients. And to me, it feels like, she, like Lively, doesn't like the idea of being rejected and lashed out and is now twisting it all into something it's not. And there may be some underhand tactics that, are a bit cross a bit of a line with Melissa Nathan. There may be evidence of that. I don't dispute that. I don't know. And we need to see the evidence. So I have an open mind. But for Stephanie Jones to sit and, act like she is holier than thou, and everything is Melissa Nathan's problem, is just wild. It's just mental. No, Stephanie Jones is, she's the one who admits that she interfered with Melissa Nathan's business clients and caused Melissa Nathan to lose a client. And then actively going forward, says that Jonesworks will not work with Melissa Nathan. Well, it's not Jonesworks' decision. Like in this case, Jen Abel can recommend Melissa Nathan. Other PR crisis firms were recommended too. At the end of the day, Wayfarer is the one that's paying for the service, and they have the final say. And it has got sweet FA to do with Stephanie Jones, whether she approves of Melissa Nathan and tag or not. I feel like that's an important point. Okay. I felt like that needed to be highlighted there, right? I needed to go back to that post because I feel like my X account is just like a bookmark of all the crap that I've called out on from both Lively, Reynolds, and Jones, James Vatuska, Leslie Sloan, a bunch of people. It also calls out some stuff Wayfarer have kind of, contradicted themselves to as well. But I do like it that, we can go back to these things that were found in real time right at the start. And, they're circulating again now. Because some people are coming into this, catching up with this case like late on. Because there's more media coverage now. Or, because some people simply have forgotten certain details. But that was important. Jonesworks at one time admired Melissa Nathan's work enough to offer her a job at Jonesworks. It eventually fell through with Melissa Nathan, and then, true to form, Stephanie Jones became purportedly, allegedly, a bit of a spiteful bitch. to just be quite frank about it, and by her own admissions, sabotaged a business client. So, yeah, there we go. Yeah, I like to have context for everything, so I think everyone should have context. And when we're sitting and looking at all of this, that context is important. And let's not forget, this is not what Abel is alleging. It's not what Wayfarer is alleging. This is in Stephanie Jones's own original complaint in this action at the very start. So, okay. Abel's actions confirm that she knew that she was defying Jonesworks' instructions as she contrived to have Nathan's company tag send a scope of work for the Wayfarer account to Abel's non-Jonesworks email and to redact it. And I do agree with Stephanie Jones, as much as it makes me want to vomit to say so. That's a good point. It's a very good point. Multiple Wayfarer executives, including Wayfarer's corporate representative, confirmed that Wayfarer hired Nathan at Abel's recommendation and over Jones's objection. And Wayfarer's president redacted Abel's effort to conceal her defiance of Jonesworks' instructions from her boss and her departure from the goals of the company. Second, Abel excluded Jones from the crisis response and digital campaign that Lively complains of. And I want to say, right, whilst there may be some evidence that, Jones wasn't copied in on everything, there's two important pieces of context. Is one, Jones was not completely in the dark. I have seen evidence where she was aware of stuff. Two, Abel was a senior member of Jonesworks, so was, had autonomy. I'm sure there was catch up and supervision and various things, but she did not have to report everything and copy Jones into everything. Most kind of leaders or managerial positions don't have to do that. Third, I think the other reason, if Stephanie Jones was excluded from some things, then that was likely because of how batshit crazy Stephanie Jones has acted towards Melissa Nathan in the past, by her own admission. So I'm sure they probably second guessed that, Jones would be a bit of a dick. Okay. From the outset, Abel, Nathan, Tagg, Baldoni, and Wayfarer deliberately excluded Jonesworks from the strategy and execution of the crisis response and actively misled Jonesworks about their actions. Abel redacted. Abel and Hanks misled Jonesworks about Tagg's scope of work, telling Jones that Nathan and Tagg would redacted. But Tagg's scenario planning document for the Wayfarer account, which was sent to Wayfarer and Abel but not Jones, from the outset envisioned that Tagg would manage media inquiries on background as sources familiar and respond to media, which Tagg in fact did behind Jonesworks' back. See, I don't see anything wrong with that. They're a crisis PR, so managing media inquiries and responding to media, I don't see the problem there. I also don't see that as supportive of Abel going rogue and Jones not being liable for this. The August 2nd, 2024 scenario planning document specified that Tagg would work alongside Jen Abel and her team with no mention of Jonesworks, the ostensible employer of Abel and her team. I'm sure I read something. I'm gonna go back and have a look. Right, I knew I'd read this recently. Oh God. Right, okay. Where is this? So this is one of the exhibits that support Wayfarer's motion for summary judgment. I need to find it again now, because I've just come out of it. I was actually on my screen. I got confused. Okay. Oh, it's been a long day with these filings. Okay, so this is so I really was confused actually because it wasn't on the screen. Okay, so this is this is the one of the exhibits that's included in Wayfair's motion for summary judgment. This is TAG's scope of work. Now, it might not be the scenario planning document, and she's saying, well, it doesn't mention Jonesworks. This is the scope of work that was sent over on the 26th of July. Overview, right? And I pointed this out. I pointed this out at the time when I was reading it. TAG PR will work closely with Jonesworks. So also, as needed, our team can be helpful in identifying and supporting future proactive opportunities to further assuage any potential negativity. That sounds an awful lot like suppress negative content in on Wayfair's behalf. But also these efforts will include align with Jonesworks. So support Jonesworks. Work with Jonesworks. It says it all the way through. Right, scenario planning may not specifically say, oh, we're going to do this and this and this and this with Jonesworks, but this is the actual terms of agreement here. This is the scope of work. This is what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, who we're going to do it with, and the fees and expenses, etc. But all the way through, it refers to Jonesworks and working with them, aligning with them, supporting them. Leanne, come in with the receipts. So she loses me when she gets a bit, when she's saying crap like that, and I have to find where it was. So yeah, and here in this top this particular paragraph actually refers to that scope of work document. Now, something redacted there we can't see, but she doesn't say any that that Jonesworks was referenced positively and collaboratively several times in that document. She goes straight to the scenario planning document, which specified that TAG would work alongside Jen Abel and her team. Jen Abel's team technically was Jonesworks. She was a Jonesworks employee. But also, it doesn't strike me as odd that Jen Abel was specifically named because she's the person, the point of contact for the Baldoni Wayfarer accounts. I don't see this as a gotcha moment for Jonesworks at all, because I think it could be implied that Jen Abel was effectively referring to Jonesworks. And because there is already, like I say, a document which Jones seems to skirt over, but does actively refer to Jonesworks as the employer. Okay, Jones was left off the August 7th, 2024 email describing the social and digital mitigation and remediation plan for Wayfarer and Baldoni. TAG employees never spoke with Jones about Wayfarer during the entire tenure of TAG's engagement for Wayfarer. What did they have to? Plus, wasn't she like never around? That's actually Wayfarer's complaint is, well, you were never around. We were about to go to a premiere and you were like in Europe. Missing in action. Wallace had no recollection of speaking with Jones regarding Wayfarer. Again, I don't see that he has to speak to Jones specifically. Abel's exclusion of Jones was intentional and systemic. Far from aligning her work with the goals of Jonesworks, Abel deliberately and repeatedly departed from these goals and hid her defiance and actions from her employer as part of her strategy to position herself as the point person for Wayfarer, exclude Jones and Jonesworks from the account, drive a wedge between her employer and client, and continue her misconduct unchecked and undiscovered. At minimum, there are significant and material evidentiary disputes regarding Abel's deliberate defiance of and deviation from Jonesworks' goals, requiring denial of her motion. Summary judgment is undisputedly unavailable for Abel's alleged conduct post-dating her termination. Common law indemnification applies only to actions an employee undertook during the course and tenure of their employment by the claimed indemnitor. Thus, Abel cannot seek indemnification for conduct she engaged in after her employment with Jonesworks ended. Abel concedes, and it is undisputed, that she was terminated from Jonesworks on August 21st, 2024, and after that date no longer worked in Jonesworks. Here, however, Lively alleges that Abel has continued to engage in tortious conduct after her termination from Jonesworks on August 21st, 2024, and through the filing of the complaint and the presence. Because Lively's complaint includes allegations that postdate Abel's employment at Jonesworks, Abel's motion must, at a minimum, as a matter of law and undisputed fact, be denied with respect to any conduct that occurred after August 21st, 2024. And I can't argue with that. That is right, in my opinion. I think that's right. There is no denying that after she was terminated from Jonesworks, Abel was no longer an employee of Jonesworks, and Jonesworks should not be indemnifying her for any conduct after that. However, it is very much disputed that, Lively has stretched her retaliation claims over and over again in terms of the dates. I think largely for discovery purposes, to try and broaden discovery, because her initial ridiculously overbroad discovery requests, subpoenas, were quashed because she wanted like years and years of everything. I think if I remember correctly, and I haven't got it in front of me, but I mean, she was literally like requesting everything that Wayfarers had, going back, years before her involvement with them. And I think the only thing she left off was any colonoscopy results. And the judge did quash those requests, and she had to narrow the requests. Okay. Conclusion. For the foregoing reasons, Jonesworks respectfully requests that this court deny Abel's motion for conditional summary judgment on her second cause of action for common law indemnification. Okay. It was a decent read, actually. I was expecting maybe there's something else I need to read where it's a bit nuts. Let's have a look. Okay, let's I got the declaration here. Maybe this will be more interesting. Alright, so it's Kirsten Thaler. We know who she is and where she works. She respectfully submits a declaration of support, etc., etc. So far this is just stating that excerpts are true and correct copies. Don't see anything interesting here. Okay, that was pretty boring. Okay, so there's a couple of attachments. Let's just see what we get. So these are some of the attachments that Stephanie Jones has included. Email thread by the looks of it, or text thread. Jamie Heath, Mitz Toskovich. I don't know if there's someone else. Messages dated 17th of June 2024. Why is there a suitcase here at the office? Did you need this? Huh? Well, this is vital to this motion. This is Mitz Toskovich, by the way. Why is there a suitcase here at the office? Did you need this? Yes, it should use Google Authenticator. It was supposed to default to that. I'm resetting it. It should put you back to the first window, but it need like 15 minutes to connect with support. Then Jamie Heath, that's all Mitz Toskovich. Jamie Heath, can you turn off my two-step? Mitz Toskovich, I will try. Are you getting emails? Can you reply approved on the email I just sent? Frame will reset your authentication. Jamie Heath, got big job for you. Mitz, yes. Jamie, I need you to start putting a timeline doc. Try to get as close to dates as possible. We can fill in the links when I get back, but when Justin and Blake met to write, AJ maybe had in calendar. Can you access? When we shot the first karaoke scene is when I showed her the video of Tasha. When Ange visited the first time and had the makeup trailer convo that apparently looked at her. When we shot the graveyard scene, when Justin met with Trainer, when Justin had convo with Blake and Ryan regarding asking about her weight, when we had the convo when we went back in Blake's house with Ange and Todd. Essentially anything we can get, either the date and alleged incident or the general time frame, and we can narrow in later. Something chronological, best you can. Consult with Reese where needed. The doc can have gaps, but at least let's get something started. And then he says, whatever you can remember, whatever Reese remembers, whatever AJ may remember, anything at all. Also, we got a letter from Blake, just anything that tells the story chronologically, and then we would just continue to build it. Okay. So this is another exhibit. This is council correspondence. So we've got Jason Sunshine. I always like to start the bomb. Don't know how much of this is necessary, but we'll start at the bottom because actually this is it's like earliest emails at the bottom. So sorry, I'm just trying to skim through this. So it's just trying to arrange this. Zoom meetings talking about interrogatories. I won't read it word for word because it's too long. And I will do a separate one for the attachments, a separate video, but I've been told I'll find this one interesting. So okay, so they're trying to arrange a meeting still. They're talking about productions and ROG responses. Okay. So again, they're talking about searches now. Wayfarer parties agreed to any mobile search that would include iMessages, WhatsApp, and Signal messages. The Wayfarer parties also agreed to produce any agreements or contracts with or among Nathan Baldoni, Wayfarer Tag, and RWA. And all engagement letters or agreements, invoices for any expenditures or losses, including attorney's fees, for which Abel will seek indemnification, including legal bills, requests for retainer, and proof of payment. You did not condition or limit your agreement to search for and produce these specific documents. Okay. They then moan that the August 27 production did not include any of these specific documents. Okay. So it's typical heated, like, oh, well, you said you were going to give me this and you did not. A response from Wayfarer. This will confirm that the Wayfarer parties searched the agreed upon repositories of data, including iMessages, WhatsApp, and Signal. All non-privileged responsive documents either have already been produced or will be produced to the extent they exist on or before September the 8th, deadline set by the court in the lively action. Okay. As for the interrogatory responses, we are prepared to supplement Ms. Nathan's response to interrogatory number 18 to provide the amounts and dates of payments. We are also willing to supplement Wayfarer's response to interrogatory number 18 to provide the amounts and dates of payments and recipients. With response to interrogatory number 24 to Ms. Abel, Jonesworks is seeking highly sensitive information as to clients with no relation to the claims or defences in this case and outside the temporal scope of any purported restrictive covenants. We are not willing to provide such information. Okay. Response from Jonesworks. Basically complaining, well, you said you were going to produce this and now you're saying you're not. Also, you did not produce these, so the Bates numbers are here. It appears that at least hundreds of pages of documents are missing from your Abel production. This is a recurring problem with your productions. Please immediately produce any and all documents responsive to August 11th and 15th agreements by the end of today. Additionally, on August 11th, you agreed to produce any tag agreements, and you agreed to do so by August 26th, and then we subsequently agreed to your one-day extension request. We would similarly expect the executed versions of the tag Wayfarer agreement no later than tomorrow at 12. This is the kind of behind-the-scenes bitching that I'm always talking about. Oh, what we see on the docket is like 10% of the actual work that's being done. The rest of it is stuff like this. Childish bickering. And we get a response, well, having conferred with our vendor, you are correct that the Bates ranges referenced my previous email. Preference in my previous email do not in fact exist. Okay, so Jason made a boo-boo. However, the documents were produced in the Jonesworks and lively actions. I will revert on the balance of your email. And then Jason emails again. Jason is obviously he's part of Friedman's firm, working for Wayfarer. Morgan, I'm following up on the redactions referenced in your previous email. Having re-reviewed the documents, the non-responsiveness redactions are appropriate. We do not intend to unredact them. And then he follows up again. With respect to the supplemental production of signal data, I'm being told that, given the demands of court-ordered production in the Lively action, we will not be able to make the production on Monday. We are working as quickly as possible and will produce no later than and likely earlier than September 12th. And then Jason emails again. For clarity, my email refers to the production of signal data with respect to the Jonesworks action. Oh, well, wow. Okay. And then Jonesworks responds with what looks like a lot. Jason, the Wayfarer parties continued and repeated failures to provide timely and complete document productions in this case have prejudiced and continue to prejudice our clients. As you well know, the deadline for substantial completion of document production in this case was initially July 1st. The Wayfarer parties missed that deadline, producing a minuscule number of documents before that date. The court subsequently set a deadline that the production of documents in response to requests served before July 15th be completed by July 25th, and a deadline that all documents be produced in response to later issued requests before August 15th. The Wayfarer parties missed both of those deadlines too. You subsequently assured us that the Wayfarer parties would complete documents productions by August 27th, including promising on August 11th to search signal messages. The Wayfarer parties did not, and belatedly informed us that they did not search signal messages as agreed and required. Now, after nearly half dozen depositions have been taken, the Wayfarer Wayfarer parties assert unilaterally that they need yet more time to produce documents that should, by court order, have been produced months ago. Just Monday, September 8th, the Wayfarer parties compounded their discovery failures and the prejudice they are inflicting. On that one day, months after substantial completion, the Wayfarer parties produced tens of thousands of documents. They also defied yet another court order in the Lively and Wayfarer action, failing to produce signal data as ordered and taking the liberty of granting themselves an extension under the guise of seeking one from the court, which the court swiftly denied. In that same purported extension request, the Wayfarer parties now represent that they will not produce signal data in the related case until September 15th, even later than your already overly tardy production proposal. This pattern of discovery, defiance, and deficiency is materially prejudicing Jonesworks' ability to litigate this case. On September 8th, Jonesworks deposed Tara Hanks, Wayfarer Studios president, without the benefit of the tens of thousands of pages of documents Wayfarer produced that same day, or of the signal data the Wayfarer parties still have not produced. On September 5th and 9th, Jonesworks deposed two third parties, a current and former employee of the agency group, both of whom testified to the use of signal to communicate regarding the events at issue in this case, including Melissa Nathan's surreptitious campaign to defame Jonesworks and Miss Jones. Yet the Wayfarer parties have not even begun production of signal messages. Those depositions have also confirmed that the Wayfarer parties' productions, to the extent they have made them, are deficient. For example, Ms. Case testified that 1. She participated in a signal chat with Jed Wallace and Melissa Nathan regarding their scheme to defame Jonesworks. 2. Ms. Nathan sent an email to a business insider as part of her effort to prompt a negative article about Jonesworks. I mean, there are a lot more than Melissa Nathan's email went into that Business Insider article. You know, I feel like that's quite important to highlight. It wasn't, and it was very, it was a lot from people other than Melissa Nathan. And 3, she sent Tag PR's statement of work to Miss Abel's rwacommunications.com email address. The Wayfarer parties have produced none of these documents despite their obvious relevance. In addition, just yesterday, Ms. Coslow testified that Ms. Nathan sent an email to a Variety reporter with statements attacking Jonesworks and Miss Jones, and that she participated in a message thread with Mr. Friedman and Miss Ahurian, neither of whom was her attorney, regarding this case. The Wayfarer parties have not produced these communications either. Additionally, given Miss Case's testimony about her and Miss Nathan's involvement in the websites and social media pages disparaging Miss Jones on behalf of prospective tag client Dwayne Johnson. Oh. So they're saying that Dwayne Johnson and Melissa Nathan worked together to disparage Stephanie Jones. My recollection is different. Stephanie Jones, from what I remember, is the one who was like saying shit about Dwayne Johnson, things like he peed in bottles on set and stuff like that. I'd have to go through the articles, but I'm sure I remember there was allegations that it was Stephanie Jones who was actually seeding negative press about Dwayne Johnson when Dwayne Johnson cut ties with Stephanie Jones. We also expect you to conduct a manual search and produce all communications, including signal messages or documents between any of Miss Nathan, Miss Case, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Wallace, or anyone else at Tag about Miss Jonesworks, or relating to the disparaging websites or related social media pages or the Business Insider article, including any payment in connection with the sites and pages. And then they just talk about, we reserve our right to do this, and this, and we will ask the court for that, and that. Oh, wow. Do you know this case is starting to become like a pissing competition almost? Like, who can throw around the biggest name in Hollywood? So far, we've now got Dwayne Johnson added to the list that was already Taylor Swift, Hugh Jackman, Rebel Wilson. I'm sure there were a few others as well. Oh, Bradley Cooper and Gigi. So Jason responds, Morgan, I write in response to your September 9th correspondence, blah, 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 in the Jonesworks action. In the interest of civility, this response will ignore the pejoratives and focus on the substance, including your repeated and deliberate misrepresentation of the facts. We have worked diligently and cooperatively with the Jonesworks for producing far more information than required under the governing rules, etc., etc. As for the purported documents identified in your email, I suggest you review the Wayfarer party's document production more closely. We are investigating your allegation and have so far located an email and attachment that you claim was not produced. The Bates numbers on the documents, and then they provide, these are Jen Abel Bates numbers, prove otherwise. We are also puzzled by your claim that neither Miss Ahurian nor Mr. Friedman was Nathan's attorney regarding this case, as both have been counsel for the Wayfarer parties from the commencement of this litigation. Yeah, that was bizarre, that claim. In light of our extensive correspondence, innumerable phone calls and conferences, and generally collegial and cooperative working relationship, your unfounded accusations of impropriety are frankly offensive. Well, that's fair. Okay, so that's that. I will do the rest of the attachments separately, I think, because there's quite a lot. but I was told I would want to read that one. I didn't realize it was because of the Dwayne Johnson thing, but it was interesting. Okay, I'm going to leave it here now. I will catch up with you guys soon, and I think I will probably do some Blake Lively exhibits, see what's unsealed. All right, guys, catch you later.